So I took a bit of a break in February just to relax and chill and get myself focused again. So we're jumping back into it with my February wrap up. Hey everybody, welcome back to another video. Yes, I took a bit of a break in February, just as a lot going on in February. Had very low energy in February and none of the videos I was filming was anything I wanted to keep. I was just very disappointed with everything I was filming. So I took a break, took a pause, and I'm back, and let's jump into the books that I read in February. So even with all the busyness and being tired and low energy, thankfully my reading did not suffer in February. In fact, I'm actually currently 4 books ahead of schedule for my Goodreads reading goal, which is actually pretty good because I usually fall behind right away. So without further ado, let's get right on into them. So continuing on the reading challenge for my church, I read a memoir or a Christian biography of Lacey Strum, and I read her book, The Reason How I Discovered a Life Worth Living. This is basically just Lacey's story of how she became a Christian, how God kind of spoke in her life and worked in her life. It's a fantastic story. This girl has gone through a lot in her lifetime, and I just find it fascinating to read real people's stories and how they've gone through life. So it's just a fascinating read. And again, she just speaks very strongly and very passionately and very truthfully. She just lays the truth out. So I found this book really engaging, really fascinating, and just it's a blessing to read how God works in other people's lives. Overall, I gave it a 5-star rating. It's really difficult for me to read nonfiction stories, especially if it's about somebody's life. I mean, how do you rate it a 3 or a 4 just because you didn't like the story or the writing? It's just really difficult. So I did give it a 5-star rating. The second book I finished in the month of February was The Viscounts Proposal by Melanie Dickerson. This was our Coffee Chapters and Christian YA book club pick of the month of February. Melanie and I were really excited to yet again do a Melanie Dickerson. We promise you guys we will not do every single Melanie Dickerson book that comes out, but we are just finding just a little bit of a lull and just a struggle to find Christian YA books that we can feature in our live shows or in our book club. So if you have any recommendations or any publishers or anything you would like to recommend of a good place to look for good Christian YA that we can feature in our book club, we have a recommendations discussion on our Goodreads page. I'll leave the link down below. You guys can leave us some suggestions of books you want to see or what types of books you want to see in our book club. But we did do another Melanie Dickerson book, and this one was fantastic. I really enjoyed this one, and I could honestly say this might be my new favorite out of all her books. So when it comes to historical fiction, medieval fantasy and medieval fiction is my jam for historical fiction. That is what I love to read. Now, I have been branching out into different historical periods, but when it comes to historical periods, medieval fiction is my favorite. But when it comes to Melanie's books, I'm really enjoying her Regency Spies of London series. In fact, I'm probably enjoying this even more than I'm enjoying her other books, which is just odd because usually the medieval is always my favorite. I just love the way this world is written. As soon as I finish reading one of these, I feel like I have to go read Jane Austen. They're just light and fun, and the characters just make it so enriched. And of course, we will go into more detail with this in the live show as well as a review coming out, so stay tuned for that. For the live show, it will be March 13th, Monday at 6:30 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. So come and join us for the Viscounts Proposal live show with me and Melanie on my channel here. And of course, now that it is kind of a new favorite out of Melanie Dickerson's books for me, I of course gave it a solid 5-star rating. It was so good. Can't wait to talk about it with you guys on the live show. The next book I finished in February was Courageous by Dina Slayman. This was a highly anticipated book for me. I really wanted to find out what happened to Rosalind after the event in Chivalrous, and I was sorely disappointed. I just was not happy with the way this book series ended. It was so slow moving. It was so predictable and so convenient. There's a few elements of this book that I really did like, how Dina Slayman did a lot of things and did a lot with the culture and how she dealt with the historical period of the Knights Templar and the Crusades. So I really like the way how she dealt with that, because the Crusades can be so romanticized and we kind of forget that it is a very low point in church history. So I really like how she didn't overly romanticize it, but at the same time, there are so many points that were just so convenient and just predictable. And then the ending almost has me wanting to just do a rant video about how this book ended. I was just so angry of how perfectly convenient this ending was. It was like all the problems the two characters were facing were suddenly wiped clean and they were no longer a problem, and it all worked out perfectly for a happily ever after. And it was just, this book didn't need that because it was already ending so well that it didn't need to be that perfect for it to end. And it got me so angered. I might, if you guys want to see a rant video, which will be very spoilery because it's about the ending, let me know in the comments below, but I'm just very disappointed. This series was an ultimate roller coaster. It started off pretty slow, but going up that I was still interested in it. Chivalrous just took it on a height that I really enjoyed the characters and the storyline, and then Courageous was on its way down. Like, it was such a weird series for me, but I was just disappointed in this. I gave it a 3-star rating because, like I said, I did like a lot of the elements and the historical time period and how some of the cultures and religions and faith and stuff was handled in here, but that's where it ends. Everything else was just sheer annoyance. The next book may be a sneak peek into my next book haul, but I read Wires and Nerves by Marissa Meyer. Marissa Meyer is an autobi author that I absolutely adore. Her books, her stories. I loved Heartless. I loved the Lunar Chronicles. And this is a continuation of the Lunar Chronicles that happens after the events of Winter, kind of in between some of the events of the later novellas from Stars Above. This carries on with Aiko being the main character, so we're following the android Aiko, or Eiko. I'm not too sure. I pronounced her Aiko. I adored her as a character. I simply love her. So I'm so excited that she kind of gets her own adventure and her own story. But we're also following some of the other characters that you loved from the Lunar Chronicles. So it has everybody in there, and it's just nice to be reunited with these fantastic characters all over again. It was a really great graphic novel. I loved the story. It really built up. And it kind of started off slow in the beginning, and the real build-up happened middle to the end. So I'm really excited for Volume 2. The only thing that I wasn't a huge fan of is the art. Now, the art is done by Doug Holgate, and it is still very well done art. I won't deny that, but it's just not an art style that I overly enjoy. And it was all like blues with a little bit of reds, like blues, grays, and some red in it. So it wasn't really colorful artwork. And I really like a lot more color in my graphic novels. And just some of the way I visualized characters were completely different. So I totally missed the memo on how Winter was supposed to look like completely. I was taken by surprise. I adored her still, but I was like, I really need to reread these books because I missed some of these character descriptions, or I'm just terrible with imagination. So I had to wrap my mind around how I visualize the characters to how they are artistically pictured in here. So there's a lot going on back and forth from there. But fantastic story. I'm so excited for Volume 2, and I just love being in here. I thought it would be overkill and just dragging on a series, but because it's in a different media format, I just want it to keep going. I'm totally fine with the continuation of it. And overall, I gave it a 5-star rating. Like, it just needed to have a 5-star rating. I would maybe put it to like a 4.5, 4-star rating because I just wasn't a huge fan of the artwork. It just wasn't my personal style, but I can't fault it on story or just completely fault it on the artwork on my personal taste. So 5-star rating for sure. The next book I read is more of like a collector's book just to have on your shelf or like a coffee table book. And that was Beauty and the Beast, Belle's Library, a collection of literary quotes and inspirational musings. So it was basically like a journal that Belle kept with quotations from her favorite books and then like inspirational musings she had about those quotations. You had a little bit of the chronological events from the movie Beauty and the Beast that we know of from the animated. So kind of mentioned a couple of the characters from there, but that was about it. Like, it just didn't have a storyline for me. It was just there. It was cute. I read it because I didn't want to go all crazy and just start buying all the books that were coming out with the new movie coming out. So I didn't want to do that. So I thought I'd read a couple of them from the library first. And this was one of them. And I don't need it in my life. Like, I'm an avid collector of Disney stuff, but it's there and I don't need it. And because it really had nothing to it and it just seems to be like a promo piece, a promo prop piece, a collector's item, I just gave it a 3-star rating. Honestly, I don't think it really needed to be done. So the next book was actually sent to me for the author for a free and honest review. She is a self-published indie author. So the next book I read in February was The Scarred Sacred, a modern-day Christian take on Beauty and the Beast by Joanna Alonso. So Joanna emailed me personally and asked me, would you like to review my book for me? And normally when people email me and they're just like, you should read my book, I'm an author, I get these books that are like, do you even read what I'm about? Do you even read any of the descriptions on my channels or my profiles or what types of books I read? Like, yeah. But when Joanna sent me the link for her book to check out, I was like, obviously this girl has checked out what I'm interested in and has picked me as a match for a reviewer for her book, because it is a Christian YA book. It is a fairy tale retelling. It is Beauty and the Beast. So this girl did her job and did her research. So if you want people to review your books, do your research on the type of reviewers and the types of books that they review. Even if they have a review policy or don't have a review policy, do your research. Don't just mass send out emails for reviews. That's not going to work. So I said yes, and I did not regret it. I am so tentative with, I don't know why, with self-published books or indie authors. I'm just so tentative because I just don't want to hurt anyone's feelings. This is a dream come true in between binding. And I'm just so nervous, but at the same time, it's like, what if I hate this book? I was not disappointed. I loved this book, guys. I gave it a 5-star rating. It was pretty slow moving for the beginning, but I have no fault in the author's writing. Like, I can tell she's starting out. I can tell she's a new author, but she is taking criticism very well. She's taking any critiques I gave very well. She has a lot of room for growth, and I'm very excited to see where she grows from this, because she can put down a good story. By the end of it, I was just cheering everybody on, and I really, really appreciated some of the strength of the faith elements and the Christian elements that she put into this book. Very strong, very faith-based, biblically based. I was so impressed with her maturity in writing and her engaging story. The only thing was she had a lot going on with some of the characters and had a lot of characters going on that it got really hard to actually really pull in and connect with the characters. Overall, though, I gave it a 5-star rating. I was just so impressed with this book. I am going to do a full video review of this. I already talked to her about it, and I'm definitely going to do a full video review, and maybe in the future you might see some of her books in our book club. I would definitely love to do some of her books in our book club. She has a lot going on. She has a lot coming out. I'll leave her website link down below and the link for this down below if you guys want to go and check them out. The last book I read in February was The Last Playboy by Wendy Spinelli. This is the .5 prequel novella to the Everland series by Wendy Spinelli. It's a fantastic story. It's kind of a prequel, so it talks about Pete's life and his sister and his friendship with Doc, kind of before the events of what happened in Everland. So it was really interesting to see the relationships there for Pete and what kind of drove him to create that world for the Lost Boys and to become who he becomes in Everland. I really enjoyed it. It was a lot shorter than I expected, actually. It was finished and then they had a sampling of the chapter from Everland in there, so I thought it was going to keep going, and then it was Everland. So it was very short. I actually read it while I was at work. I was covering for a clinic that had nobody booked. So I was just sitting there watching for the phone to ring. So I read a book while I was at work. Really quick, really easy. Read it while I was at work. I gave it a 5-star rating. Normally I find prequel novellas, it's like they either need to be there or they don't need to be there. This one it was great to have. It didn't need to be there, but I loved that it was there and I loved the background for it. So those are all the books I read in February. Let me know in the comments below if you have read any of these books or what your favorite books for the month of February were. And remember, if you have any recommendations for Coffee Chapters and Christian YA Book Club, I will leave the link for that below. You guys can leave recommendations in the comments or in the comments on that Goodreads group. I'd love to hear from you guys. As always, guys, thank you so much for watching. I'll see you next time. Bye!